after that intro, I mean, we can see that you're a highly complex and multi-talented character. Would you describe yourself as complex, Kelechi?
I would, I guess so. I guess so. I think there's the urge to say, oh no, I'm just so simple. And it's like, no, I can start off a Monday feeling one type of way, and by 3 p.m., I'm somebody else completely. I think complexity is good. I think that that's the whole point, I guess, of having the human experience, right? To explore all of our layers, our conflicts, our tensions, our flows. That's the whole point of doing any of this. So I think that, yeah, I'm happy to be complex. I'm happy to be discovering myself, to be reimagining myself at every stage of my life, because we are worlds unto ourselves. You know, we're universes unto ourselves. And there's so much of us that is yet to be discovered. So, yeah, I think complexity, being complex actually does describe it accurately.
And where are you now, would you say, in your self-discovery?
I would say I'm probably I see the term used a lot in terms of pop culture, but I would say probably I'm in my soft girl era. I mean, I want to be. I want to be in my soft girl era, which means like taking life slowly, enjoying the like beauty of life. But then there are so many things that are happening geopolitically and sociopolitically that make it hard for me personally to kind of sit in that space. And at the same time, I feel that calls through. There's another pop culture thing about your villain era, and I feel like as somebody that was rather like parentified and adultified as being a black girl, I took on a lot of responsibility that wasn't necessarily mine to take on. So what I call my villain era is essentially just me saying no to things that aren't really my responsibility. Yeah.
That's not being a villain, is it?
No,
it's
but
being confident and knowing what you want to do.
But it's hard because I say no and I'm like, oh my God, no. But it's necessary.
And would you say that there's a dominant Kelechi? I'm wondering whether that's the cultural and race critical thinker. Is that the dominant Kelechi?
Definitely. I think that's how I first appear. When people meet me, it's like, oh, she's so fiery, she's so militant, she's, you know, as you say, dominant. But it's necessary. I think it's necessary in this landscape. I think when we first spoke, when we first like officially met, I said to you that it's women like you that I looked up to, because if you hadn't been the broadcaster that you are, then I wouldn't have known that it's possible as a black woman or as a black girl to share my opinions, to go away to research and to come back with a nuanced, layered, complex manner of delivering something that would resonate far and wide. We have to see it to be it. And so because you were dominant in that way and appearing in the world, broadcasting in the way that you have, and other black women have, you know, whether it's in politics or broadcasting, whatever the case may be, it meant that I had people to look at and say, it's possible for me to do what I'm doing.
I'm so flattered, so flattered, I can't tell you. And I'll just share that when we first met, and I was talking about your book, and you said that the reporter was based on me, and I nearly burst into tears. I was so flattered, and it just shows that, you know, we're all doing our own little thing in our little spaces, and we think that it isn't really resonating with people, but it really does. And as you say, you have to see it to be it.
Definitely. And even if sometimes we don't think of ourselves as activists, I mean, some people just take on the label and they're not really doing much, but I think that there are people who are doing the work without calling it that. You know, I think about even when we talk about womanism or black feminism, my grandmother was doing feminism even if she never called it that, you know? And I think in terms of activism, by you taking the step to say, I'm gonna be in this space, I'm gonna show up and be the eyes where people want to have their eyes closed to this thing, I'm going to show up in that way. It meant that kind of reverberated throughout, you know, timelines and generations, to mean that I could see somebody already doing that and follow suit. And this is why I wanted Ellis as part of this conversation today, because Ellis would say that he doesn't consider himself an activist. I always say that I don't consider myself to be an activist, but it's not about what label you give yourself. Do you show up and do you do the work that needs to be done? If you do, then yeah, you're doing activism.
And Ellis, on that point, do you show up and do the work that needs to be done, and tell us how?
Yeah, I mean, I'm someone who's always just showed off being true to themselves, you know, always channeled authenticity. And I think there's something about like we're not able to see ourselves. So like Kelechi said, if I don't call myself an activist, Kelechi doesn't also like label herself an activist either, but there's something about like we can't see ourselves, but everybody else can see us. And so if I'm showing up and I'm doing the work, I've did a lot of community work in the LGBTQ plus community around well-being. I'm also an astrologer, so I have my own clients that we take a holistic approach to their well-being and their purpose and unpick why they're here on Earth. And so that in itself is activism, you know, and I'm not able to always see that.
And the documentary.
Why do you think there's that reluctance to sit under that label of being an activist? Is there something that you think there's, I don't know, a sense of negativity attached to it?
I just feel like the way the term is coined right now, it's like made to look like it's just one way. So it's like when you think of activism, it's very much, you think of like protesting and organizing like protests and mutual aid funds and stuff like that. And but there's so many types of activism. There's so many types. And I listened to somebody called Bayo Akomolafe, and he has this theory of post-activism. And his theory is about when the world or when society comes to a brick wall, when it comes to the end of the road and there's nowhere else to turn, and imagine there's a brick wall. Post-activism is then when a crack opens in that wall, like something magically happens and you find like that the brick starts falling away and you go into that brick. And so then everything you create, where I see myself fitting as an activist, is everything that I create is from that crack, from being in that crack of the world and in society.
That's a beautiful description. You can picture it there, visualize it. And it's interesting what you say about activism not being in one vein, that they're all forms of activism. And I think that humour is one of them as well. One of your characters that I think just portrays this excellently is Sally in HR, who, shall we say, if we're polite, Sally has a bit of a problem with black and brown colleagues, doesn't she? I don't know whether would you call her racist?
Well, I wouldn't call myself racist. I just, I think sometimes, you know, I really do mean well. I just honestly, sometimes I do put my foot in it a little bit, sometimes.
But she's unaware, isn't she, Sally?
She's unaware, and I feel like that is what I wanted to highlight there, is the danger in this unawareness, in this unconscious bias, that this is somebody who is entrusted with the well-being of the staff at Plantation. And and so she's entrusted with their well-being, and she's making all these faux pas that will affect them in the long term. Like when she mentioned to Morenike that, oh, you know, yeah, we kept giving your pay slip to somebody else because you keep changing your hairstyles. There are so many things there where people have had things added to their appraisals, and it wasn't actually them, that they didn't do the thing, but it was part of their appraisal. So, you know, I try to make light of something that I think if we laugh at it, then we're going to think about it, and that's all I really want.
Yes, but it also makes a very, very serious point as well, and that is the point, isn't it, Ellis? That you know, through humour, we can actually see the activism fully displayed.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of humour, I'm from Liverpool. I'm born and raised there, although I might not sound like I am.
Not much laugh.
Because I've lived in London for the past 8 years, so my accent's watered down. And there's something about the black and Scouse humour. So from Liverpool, we're called Scousers. Some people call us Liverpudlians, but we're Scousers. And so there's something about that humour that is also like activism. We have our own sense of humour, yes. We have our own vocabulary, we have our own style of speech and everything like that. And I've been doing some work to like showcase Black Liverpool, and I'm about to debut a documentary called Delado Rising from the Ashes, and it screens for the first time on the 25th of October in Liverpool in the Tongue Auditorium. And it's essentially recollecting the stories of a African drum and dance ensemble that emerged in 1981 from Liverpool 8, also known as Talk Stuff. And they were activists in their own way, you know. They were activists in the arts and creative activists. So I'm really excited to showcase that.
Yeah, I'm particularly excited as well. I lived in Liverpool for a couple of years, and I know the Scouse humour is second to none. Second to none.
Yeah.
What do you think Sally would make of the World Reimagined and the Triangle of Unity Festival?
Well, I think it's really lovely what Michelle and everyone's put together today. Just being out here in the square and thinking about ships, but I do love spices. You know, I do love spices. I remember one time I went to this Indian restaurant and no, am I allowed to tell that story? No, I'm not allowed to tell that story.
You have to wait for that story in the next edition. Kelechi and Ellis, thank you so much.